Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nintendo Save the Game Boy show on Save the Game Media. Now, a couple things I want to go over today. I'm going to talk about backwards compatibility confirmation on the Switch, a couple questions that we got from chat, and just some overall awesomeness about the last couple weeks. First, I want to say I'm a little sorry I didn't get a recording in last week. This week has been extremely hectic for me, especially coming back from New York with the Extra Life trip. We raised so much money. We did such a great job. And I want to applaud everybody watching. Thank you. Thank you for helping us help everybody that we can. Now I want to jump on. This is always casual. This can be casual. I had such a blast playing with the guys and Brianna, and I love being in settings like that. I work at PAX. I'm a volunteer as an enforcer, and I get to run console tournaments the whole time I'm there at PAX East, from Black Ops to Halo to my personal two big favorites are Original Smash and Mario Kart 64. I have such a blast running those things at night, and it gets so hype. Everybody in the building, in that room, is just so excited to be there. And I feed off of that beautiful energy. And I had such a blast just being able to sit on that couch, play games, hang out with the rest of my co-hosts, and just do something really good. So I am at PAX. I love PAX. You get to, if you haven't been to PAX East, it's a huge different beast. Because I know right now Unplugged is coming up next month, which is in Philadelphia, and that's all tabletop. Board games, D&D. If it can be played on a table, it's there. And if it's all analog, they got it. I have a couple friends that go every year that are also enforcers, and you just get to see so much cool stuff. There's mini competitions where people are just painting these things, just insanely detailed. And it's just so cool to see what they do. And for PAX East, we take over the entire Boston Convention and Expo Center, from half of the building being just tabletop stuff for you to take out a game, play it, to vendors you get to buy super cool pins and stuff from. As you know, I'm an avid pin collector. And I also love, like I said, I run them, but I also win tournaments too. So this is one of many badges that I have from several tournaments that I've won at PAX. My personal favorite one being there is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo and our PAX closer, which is Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. I have won the volleyball tournament 4 out of the last 6 years that I've played it. 1 because I missed the end of the shift, and 2 because I had to be picked up, so I had to bow out. But all in all, it was great. I love people. I love being out in the open. I love interacting with you guys. And I just love being helpful. So let's get down to nitty gritty. One of my first questions I got on here was, how do I fall on the pronunciation of the acronym for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System? Which is why we've got this beautiful little background right here. If I'm talking fast, it's going to be SNES. S-N-E-S. Very simple, very clean, very crisp. I don't understand where SNES comes from, but I can understand from some different dialects and everything, you can have that. Or if we're talking about, do I say the word outright, SNES, or do I go each individual letter, the S-N-E-S? I prefer SNES. It's quick, it's easy, it's right to the point. If you need an extra explanation, I will say SNES, because it's the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And it gave us amazing games and a huge upgrade to the graphical capability from the original Nintendo or Famicom, depending on which side of the pond or planet you want to be on. I do love the original name Famicom. I wish we got it that way, but Nintendo was the company that made it, so they got to choose what the rest of the world got to hear it be called. Rather than a family computer, it was now the Super Nintendo. And that brings us to our second question, and that's going to be about Donkey Kong Country. Now, I was asked by Tom Alpaca Tom in our Discord, Donkey Kong Country games on the SNES peak Donkey Kong better than the Mario SNES series. Donkey Kong on the Super Nintendo was a wonderfully added platformer with beautiful backgrounds, amazing soundtracks, and huge diversity for characters. We had a completely different art style with Donkey Kong Country than we did with Mario. And you can see from the background that I put up here, this is Donkey Kong Country 2, which just dropped on Nintendo Switch Online. So if you haven't gotten a chance to play it, if you haven't played it before, and you're one of our younger viewers, and not with emulation or anything else, get on that and play this. This is a beautifully fun game, but it can be brutally hard at times. And I think that's why I put Donkey Kong above Mario in that. Mario has some very slight difficulty levels in the super late game or in the secret stage area. But Donkey Kong Country ramps up that difficulty after a few levels. You need to figure out how you're going to do this with a single player, or do you need to get this extra coin with a secondary player? How are you going to play all this by yourself or with a friend? And you got two people on the screen at the same time. Whereas Mario, we couldn't get two people at the same time. It was always one after the other. Oh, you take my turn as Mario. I fell in that pit. Now it's your turn as Luigi. Just to replay the same areas. But Donkey Kong Country gave us that synchronous play rather than asynchronous for Mario. So, Tom, I am going to say I think Donkey Kong Country was better than Mario on the SNES. But once we start going to further iterations, the Nintendo 64, where we have Super Mario 64, Paper Mario, and the only thing we got from Donkey Kong Country was Donkey Kong 64. And as fun and train wrecky as that game could be, I gotta give it to Mario on that system. And it wasn't until later when we got Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Wii U, or subsequently on the 3DS, that the good old-fashioned 2D platformer Donkey Kong was making a comeback. Mario wins overall, but Donkey Kong Country is going to be in my heart for the Super Nintendo no matter what. I don't really have anything much to talk about other than those two big questions and a lovely little tirade about how I like to help people. But there's so much going on in the Nintendo sphere right now. You have Nintendo's lawsuit against PalWorld. Some sides are going to be 100% for Nintendo. Others are for PalWorld, or more along the lines of, how is this harming the consumers? Is this harming the consumers? Or is this just harming companies that Nintendo doesn't want to see enter their space? Nintendo has a space and has had this space since the 80s. The innovators for home console, well, not really the innovators. We had the Atari, ColecoVision, a couple other machines before that. But Nintendo kind of mainstreamed their home system. Then they revolutionized the handheld market. Nobody really had anything that could be considered a handheld gaming device other than Nintendo, or maybe some rinky-dink, oh, hey, I've got these tiny little Tomies that are small levels for, like, Game & Watch. But it gave us the Game Boy, which is the great-great-grandfather to the amazing Nintendo Switch that we have now. And there's so much to it that you can't really discount how Nintendo wants to do things. Nintendo prefers their image as clean as they can be. They don't want people making games for them. As a fan base, if you catch my drift, they want to make things themselves. They want their own remasters, their recolors, their remakes. They don't want... I mean, it's terrible to say Nintendo doesn't want people to have fun with projects on their own, but they want people to have fun with projects that are in the same vein of, like, oh, hey, I made this really cool platformer that has elements of item collection to go back and forth. Cool, we made a Metroidvania. Does it have Metroid elements in it? Does it have sprites from Metroid? Does it use color palettes from Metroid? Where are we going to go on that kind of thing? Because which came first, Metroid or Castlevania? And I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure Metroid came before Castlevania. And Castlevania, as a game, didn't become what it was later on until maybe Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation. Maybe slightly before that on the Game Boy Advance. But Metroid was the queen for all of these types of backtracking exploration games. Does that mean Nintendo is going to sue anybody else that comes out with something that's a bounty hunter in space that has to collect items to destroy somebody or capture a prisoner somehow? I don't know. It's hard to speculate on something like that. But from what we've seen with the lawsuit going on with PalWorld, it's a lot more, here's an intellectual property of a device and a concept that we created for our Pokemon games that you are directly infringing upon by blatantly copying. And I'm not talking about characters. It's all about, one of the primary pieces of the lawsuit was how you catch pals. But Pokemon didn't go out, Nintendo didn't go after anybody else. Cassette Beasts is still fine. And I know there's a couple others on Steam that are Pokemon-like clones. But they went after PalWorld for this. Now, is it because PalWorld taunted them, stating that we don't care, and we have our assets the way we want them to, we're just going to make money without doing any background check? Well, they did their background checks. They knew what they were doing. But what about, and then their character designs? Like, that's not under a microscope. That's not under scrutiny. It's exactly what it is. You have pals that look like Pokemon, and some of them look really close to being Pokemon. But that's what it is. You can take something, you can modify it. If Diddy Kong never took off his hat, we could take off the hat, change the color of the shirt, now we have a completely different monkey for a whole new game. We can change Dixie Kong's hair and change her outfit, and then boom, we have two new monkeys for a completely different game that may not even be platforming. But where is Nintendo going on this lawsuit? It's $66,000. They're not doing much, but they're trying to send a message. Something like that with more information coming out on it. I don't like the message that they're sending. I do love Nintendo, but I don't like how they're trying to shut things down so harshly. And I've had that opinion on other projects too. Like, there was somebody who was creating a beautiful remaster of Zero Mission, Metroid 2, because we didn't have anything like that. We just had the original Game Boy version of Metroid 2 pixelated to the nines. But somebody took the time to take assets from different Metroid games, compile them together, and redesign the game itself to look and feel just like Zero Mission. Nintendo sent him a cease and desist letter. Not that he was trying to make any money off of the project, just releasing the ROM and letting people play it. And then 3 months later, Nintendo puts out the HD remaster for Zero Mission. So is this coincidentally based on timing? If Nintendo didn't have sights on, we have this Metroid game, we've already made it, we're polishing it up, and we're sending it out. Or, because that's the only thing you can really comply with. Nintendo already had it in the works, and since it was primed to be put out, that's when they shut it down. Because Nintendo takes almost too much time to polish a game. But they do it because of their reputation. They do it because that's what they've done since the beginning. Now, you can argue about wanting to change, letting things go. Nintendo does that to a T. What they do to change things is how they release new systems. You went from a directional pad and 2 buttons for the Nintendo, the NES. You went to a directional pad, 4 facing buttons, and 2 shoulder buttons for the SNES. Then we got the Squid controller for the 64, that everyone's favorite Smash controller for the GameCube, and then we moved to the Wii. Nintendo made motion controls. The Wii U is a fun system to me still, and they gave us the tablet that ended up becoming what the Switch looks like. All they had to do was cut off the ends of the Wii U tablet. Now we have a Switch. And we can say the same thing for the Game Boy line too. It went from monochrome green and black to color to the Advance giving us a new cartridge style with higher updated graphic capability, to the DS. Well, we went to the SP, which is a slightly smaller version of the Advance that gave us a backlit screen on some versions of that. And then to the DS, a dual screen system, new cartridge style, but it still took Game Boy Advance games, which would still subsequently play original Game Boy games. Then we got DS Lite, DSi XL. Oh, great, now we're just making things a little bigger and smaller for people. And then the 3DS came out. Now we're putting in 3D functionality so that you can see the game a little bit better in different eyes. Like, I loved playing Zelda Ocarina of Time on the 3DS because it gave me that sense of depth. Now I can see what the creators are really kind of coming to when we're in the forest temple, when you're adult Link and you're doing some winding hallway puzzle against the pose. Now we get to see that super depth that they were working with. And then we got the 2DS, which was a DS with the 3DS technology, but in a straight handheld to do 2D only. And then my personal favorite, which was the 3DS XL. I love this guy because it has such a huge screen and it fits for me. My wife has a 3DS, just a regular one, because that's what she likes. It fits her hands and it works for her when she was playing Pokemon. But aside from a history lesson on some quick Nintendo products and what Nintendo does for legality, I don't know what they're doing. I really don't know. They could have put out an announcement saying, like, hey, here's the Nintendo Switch 2. This is what we have. This is when it's going to release. But they're still harping prior to March 31st, 2025. So we may see that announcement in March. We may see the announcement in February. I don't think we're going to get an announcement before Christmas. If we did, it's Nintendo hyping it up so that they can make sure they have the right numbers to combat scalpers and make sure everybody who wants a Switch 2 is going to get a Switch 2. And with that, my son has been saving up his money, his allowance money from my grandmother, who gives him money every week we go over to see her. He has been saving up diligently for the Switch 2, and he has enough to cover it, and I'm going to cover the rest, because I cannot wait to see what they're doing with a PS4 Pro style handheld system that we may be getting some amazing ports for. Companies could already have these ports in place. We could see Elden Ring on the Switch 2. We could see a Dark Souls collection if we're doing that. We can see a lot more games of higher caliber than what Nintendo's been putting out on the Switch 2 to bring much more needed life to this system. Not to say that the Switch needs an injection for life, because it's one of the top 3 selling consoles of all time. Right behind the PS2, right behind the, actually I think the 3DS, the Nintendo DS. Like, Nintendo's, I think, 3 of the top 5. But that's because Nintendo does what Nintendo wants to. And I might have gone on a little bit of a ramble, but that's why you're here. We're here to engage. We're here to talk about Nintendo, see what they're doing, speculate on what we really want to come out. I got confirmation from a buddy of mine at work. He said that it sounds super plausible the way I was talking about the Switch 2 having a dual screen, but he hates the idea. Do you hate the idea? Drop in the comments or hop in our Discord and discuss with me what speculations you like, you don't like. what you personally think you want to come with the Switch. Maybe things you just want to come out with the Switch. Are we going to get a GameCube Nintendo Online with the Nintendo membership? I would love that. I would love to see a ton more games show up on Nintendo Online just because it's Nintendo giving us their library. Give us more of what we want. And we want to love the catalog. We want to see more of what's in there. First Nintendo party, third party games. Let's see what we can do and let's see what we can go on. I want to jump on with Patreon. $1 a month gets you access to all of our Patreon stuff. It gives you access to podcasts early and our special bi-monthly, biannual game shows that we do together as hosts. Like I said last time, I'm going to be hosting Jeopardy, so I'm going to be building an insanely brutal board. Hopefully some of my coworkers are watching because some things might be on there. I don't know, but I do, and you don't. Extra Life is not ended. Like, we can still take donations. We can put those links up. We're going to have those links in our Discord chat underneath this video as well. If you still wish to donate to help out a great cause, it doesn't go away after the weekend. We just keep doing what we can to help out these kids and help out these hospitals. And the last thing I want to leave you with, something that I worked on in a haze, but I love it. This is the Nintendo Joe, and I want to welcome you all to join. We have the reincarnation, and I want you all to be part of the Nintendo Joe. Because Link says it best when he goes, yeah! And that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut down the competition, we're going to work with our friends, and we're going to be the best that we can be. And you know what? Tackle the day when you get it, and keep doing what you're doing.